Let's take a look this week at non-discriminatory evaluation. What this really is getting at is equity and fairness in education. So one of the goals of public education is to create an environment where everyone has an opportunity to learn. To do this, education's governing bodies have created programs that seek to make learning more equitable and fair for everyone. One of the measures to do this is IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Now, as part of IDEA, schools are required to evaluate all students who might need special education services. And these student evaluations have to be tailored to the individual. That's the appropriate part. This means that the assessments must be given one-on-one with only the evaluator and the student present. They also have to be non-discriminatory evaluations. IDEA requires that each child who is suspected of having a disability receives an appropriate evaluation in all of the areas of the suspected disability. So we look at health and background, vision, hearing, social and emotional development, general intelligence, academic performance, communication, the motor abilities of the student, both gross motor and fine motor, aptitude or achievement, and then academic skills and the student's progress toward the general curriculum. This evaluation has to be done by an entire team of evaluators who are knowledgeable and trained in the use of the tests and any other evaluation materials that they use. They also are required to employ a variety of sound evaluation materials, and they have to use procedures that are selected and administered so that they're not racially or culturally discriminatory. But they also have to not subject the child to unnecessary tests and assessment. During this evaluation, we include a period of information gathering that's relevant to the student from a variety of sources. Based on that information, or based on the information that's useful instructionally in planning for the child's education. And then an appropriate evaluation provides information to be used to determine the child's eligibility for special education or related services and the educational needs of the child. So what does non-discriminatory mean? In this context, non-discriminatory means that the test must be deemed valid by educational standards. Valid is official education language that means a test is not biased for or against any individual or group. The tests must be given in the student's primary language, and any other burdens such as cost should be removed so that they don't influence the student's outcomes on the evaluation. So what happens during this non-discriminatory evaluation? The NDE has many steps. First, stakeholders have to determine if a non-discriminatory evaluation is necessary. Someone at the school may start the evaluation process, or parents can start the process themselves. Either way, a parent has to consent to the evaluation, and then assessment must be completed within 30 days of initiation. Students who are already receiving special education services then must be reevaluated every 3 years or more frequently if that's determined by the team. So who takes part in this non-discriminatory evaluation? This is going to start with the parents and the child, but then it's also going to include the special education teacher, a principal, a guidance counselor, and a subject area expert. For older students and students who participate in classes in the general education program, one or more classroom teachers may also be involved in the evaluation process. Let's look at a timeline. When we think about how non-discriminatory evaluation works, after the evaluation period begins, we start with information gathering. A group of stakeholders will gather information about the student's disability. Sometimes the student might be given a non-discriminatory assessment. A non-discriminatory assessment might be a standardized test or a norm reference test, but they can also include observational assessments based on written criteria. Interviews also fall into this category. After the assessment, the group of stakeholders will reconvene to determine the best course of action for the student. This could include specialized classes, sessions with a speech therapist, or other help might include an IEP, a 504 plan, or even more extensive assistance. You need to make sure that you know that as the intervention specialist, it's your job to make sure that you know, that the team knows, and that especially the families and students know what tests measure and don't measure. So I want you to click on this link and read this information about what tests measure and don't. And then I want you to be able to really apply your understanding of the non-discriminatory evaluation. So when you have this document, I want you to click on this link, and it's going to take you to the non-discriminatory evaluation page, where I want you to be able to make sure that you can answer some questions about that. With regard to procedural safeguards, special education services in our state are governed by both the state and federal laws, along with any district procedures that are on top of that. The federal law, in our case it's IDEA, is the ultimate authority, and that IDEA federal law will trump all other laws and procedures. States and our districts can choose to further define IDEA, but they cannot choose to do less than what IDEA mandates. So with our procedural safeguards, we've got first the document. To meet several of the federal requirements, Ohio has this procedural safeguards document. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to this document here. I want you to look at that. And this document has the key information regarding students and parent-guardian rights in special education, including the right to participate and the right to appeal a decision. When it comes to the meeting, parents and guardians need to be offered a copy of their procedural safeguards at each IEP meeting. This meeting is required for eligibility for special education, enrollment in special education, and any time an IEP is developed or revised, the IEP has to meet at least annually to review student progress on the IEP. I want you to click on this link, and that's going to take you to this document. Once you've done that, actually you should do that now, take about 5 minutes to review the document and make sure that you can answer the following questions. One, can you respond to how accessible is this document? And by accessible, I mean how easy is it to read and to understand? How would you explain this document to a family? So make sure that you could explain what it is, what it means, and why they need to understand it and have it. How would you share this document for a person whom English is a second language? So figure out how and what you would do in that situation. And then I want you to be able to address what barriers do you see in sharing this document and how could you overcome those barriers?